The sky over Fort Bragg was a dull gray that morning, like it couldn't decide whether to rain or hold its breath. On the training field, dozens of recruits stood in perfect lines, boots aligned, faces tense, shoulders stiff with anticipation. This wasn't just another drill. It was the first true evaluation. And for many of them, it would also be the first humiliation. Among them stood Private Ava Collins. She didn't look special. No one did at first glance. But Ava had something the others didn't. A reason she couldn't afford to fail. She stared straight ahead, jaw tight, heart pounding so loudly she could hear it inside her ears. A voice echoed across the field. "This is not a game." The drill instructor stepped forward, broad shoulders, cold eyes, a voice sharpened by years of breaking people down and rebuilding them into soldiers. "You will run until your body refuses. You will crawl until your pride disappears, and you will continue even when you think you can't." He walked slowly in front of the line. "If you quit, you don't belong here." A pause. "Begin." The whistle snapped like a gunshot. The first collapse. The field erupted. Recruits surged forward into the obstacle course, rope climbs, barbed wire crawls, mud trenches, and a final sprint that separated the strong from the broken. Ava pushed herself into motion immediately. At first she kept pace. Her breathing was controlled, her movements sharp. "I can do this." She repeated it like a mantra. Step, jump, climb. The first obstacle, scaled wall, was easy enough. She pulled herself over cleanly. Second, mud crawl. She dropped low, dragging herself forward as dirt clung to her uniform, scraping her skin. Her lungs burned already, but she ignored it. Keep going. But the course wasn't designed to be fair. It was designed to expose limits. By the halfway point, Ava felt it. The first crack. Her legs felt heavier. Her breath came faster. Her vision blurred slightly at the edges. She pushed harder. Too hard. By the time she reached the uphill sprint segment, her body was already fighting her. And then it happened. One step. Then another. Her foot slipped slightly in the loose dirt. She corrected it. But it was too late. Her breathing broke rhythm. Her legs failed to recover. And suddenly, her body stopped responding the way she needed it to. Ava slowed, then staggered, then collapsed, face first into the dirt. The silence before the humiliation. For half a second, the entire field didn't react. Even the wind felt like it paused. Ava lay there motionless, dust rising around her. Then came the sound. A chuckle. Then another. Small at first. Then spreading. She's done already. No way she made it that far just to drop like that. Ava pushed herself up slowly, hands trembling in the dirt. Her vision was spinning, but she forced herself upright anyway. That's when the drill instructor arrived. He didn't rush. He never rushed. He walked like failure was something he had seen too many times to be surprised by it. He stopped in front of her. Looked down. The entire field quieted slightly, waiting. Ava stood there shaking, mud dripping from her uniform, chest rising unevenly. The instructor leaned forward slightly. "What's your name?" "Private Collins, sir," she managed. He studied her for a moment longer than necessary. Then he spoke. One word. "Weak." It wasn't shouted. That made it worse, because everyone heard it clearly. Ava didn't move, didn't speak, didn't defend herself. But something inside her cracked right then, not loudly, not visibly. Silently, like glass breaking underwater. The instructor turned away immediately, already moving on to the next recruit. as if she wasn't worth another second. The walk back that felt like a fall. Ava was told to step aside. Not removed. Not discharged. Just ignored. Like she had become background noise. She walked slowly toward the edge of the field, where failed recruits were temporarily grouped. Every step felt heavier than the last. Not because of physical exhaustion, but because of something worse. Recognition of failure. Around her, other recruits continued training. Running, climbing, fighting. Life on the field didn't stop for her. It never would. One recruit brushed past her and muttered under his breath, "Should have trained harder before coming here." Ava stopped for half a second, then kept walking, because there was nothing she could say. Not yet. The barracks that night. That night the barracks were quiet. Too quiet. Most recruits slept instantly, exhausted from the brutal first evaluation. But Ava didn't. She sat on the edge of her bunk, staring at her hands. Still dirty. Still shaking. The word echoed in her mind. Weak. Not loud anymore. Worse. Repetitive. She looked around. Other recruits sleeping, breathing evenly, some even snoring slightly. Normal. Accepted. Belonging. Then she looked at herself in the small, reflective surface of her locker. A tired girl stared back. Mud still stained her face. Eyes heavy. But something else was there too. Something buried under exhaustion. Anger. Not explosive. Controlled. Quiet. Dangerous. Ava leaned closer to the reflection. "I can't stay like this," she whispered. Her voice barely existed in the room, but it was enough for her to hear it. Outside, a faint wind hit the barracks wall. Inside, something shifted in her mind. Not motivation. Not hope. Something sharper. Decision. The first night she didn't sleep. That night, Ava didn't lie down. She stood up again. Slowly. Carefully. She walked out of the barracks. No one stopped her. No one noticed. The base lights cast long shadows across the empty training ground. And there, in silence, Ava began to run again. At first slowly. Then faster. Her boots hit the ground rhythmically. Left, right. Breathing steadying. Pain returning. But she didn't stop. When her lungs burned, she kept going. When her legs shook, she pushed harder. When her body begged her to rest, she ignored it. Because something inside her had changed. Failure wasn't something she felt anymore. It was something she refused to accept again. And deep in the dark training field of Fort Bragg, the girl who had collapsed in front of everyone started rebuilding herself. One painful step at a time. The morning after her failure felt different. Not because anything had changed on the field, but because everything had changed in how people looked at her. Ava Collins noticed it immediately. The glances, the whispers that stopped when she walked past, the small pauses in conversation that said more than words ever could. She wasn't just another recruit anymore. She was the one who collapsed. And in a place like Fort Bragg, labels spread faster than orders. Don't pair with her. During morning formation, squads were reassigned for tactical drills. Ava stood still, waiting for her group assignment. The instructor's voice echoed. Squad 3, Miller Grant Hayes. A pause. Then, and Collins. A faint reaction moved through the group. Not loud. Just enough. A sigh from someone behind her. A glance exchanged between two recruits. And then, the sentence that cut deeper than anything else that day. Try to keep formation tight, One of them muttered quietly. She slows people down. Ava heard it. She didn't respond, because responding wouldn't change anything yet. But inside her, something hardened further. The first drill after failure. The exercise was simple on paper. Clear terrain movement, tactical coordination, speed under pressure. But nothing at Fort Bragg was ever simple. Go. The squad moved out. Ava kept pace at the back. Not because she couldn't go faster, but because no one expected her to lead anything. At first, everything went smoothly, until the first pressure test hit. Sudden simulated gunfire. Smoke canisters exploded across the field. Visibility dropped instantly. Formation broken, someone shouted. Panic spread fast. 2 recruits moved left when they should have gone right. Another froze entirely. Ava saw it all unfold in seconds. But she didn't speak. Not yet. Because she knew something the others didn't. If you speak too early, no one listens. If you wait too long, it's too late. The mistake that almost ended the drill. The squad reached a narrow passage between 2 barriers. Perfect place for a simulated ambush. And exactly what happened. Contact left, someone yelled. The group scattered. Wrong direction. Wrong cover. Chaos forming fast. Ava stepped forward slightly. Wait, she started. But her voice got buried in noise. No one heard her. Or worse, no one cared. A simulated hit marker flashed on 2 recruits. They were out. The team was falling apart. The instructor, watching from a distance, scribbled something on his clipboard. Not impressed. Just observing another predictable failure. Ava clenched her jaw. This was it. The moment she either stayed invisible or changed everything. The first time she spoke loud enough. Stop moving, Ava shouted. The voice cut through the chaos. Not loud like anger. Loud like control. It worked. Half the squad froze instinctively, even surprised at themselves for listening. Ava stepped forward into view. Rain starting to fall now. Mud thickening under their boots. She pointed left. 2 threats on the ridge. You keep running that way, you're exposed. A pause. A recruit snapped back. You're not in charge. Ava didn't hesitate. Then don't follow me, she said. Beat. Then she moved. Not waiting for permission. Not asking again. Just acting. And something strange happened. A few seconds of hesitation. Then 2 recruits followed her. Then another. Because even doubt needs direction when panic takes over. The first time she led without permission. Ava moved fast through the field. Not recklessly. Precisely. She read terrain angles, blind spots, timing gaps in the simulation. Every move she made reduced risk. Every call she gave stabilized the squad. Cover right. Move low. Don't cross open line, wait now. Her voice stopped being questioned. Not because people trusted her yet, but because it was working. The squad that was breaking apart slowly reformed behind her. Still unstable. Still skeptical. But no longer lost. The instructor notices something new. From the observation platform, the drill instructor narrowed his eyes. He had seen recruits panic before. Seen leaders emerge before. But this was different. This wasn't loud leadership. It was adaptation. Controlled. Measured. Survival-based thinking under pressure. He watched as Ava adjusted strategy mid-movement when conditions changed. He made a note. Shows situational awareness under stress. Then added underneath. Still unproven. Because one good moment didn't erase failure. Not here. Not yet. The drill ends, and everything feels uncertain. End exercise. The field slowly returned to stillness. Smoke cleared, breathing heavy across the squad. Ava stood slightly apart from the others. Mud-covered, exhausted, but alert. No celebration. No acknowledgement. Just silence. One recruit finally spoke. "We actually made it through." Another looked at Ava, confused. "Yeah, because of her." No one answered that directly, because admitting it would mean something uncomfortable. That the girl they dismissed had just saved them from failure. That night, the shift begins. Back in the barracks, something changed. Not openly, not dramatically, but quietly. Ava noticed it first. No one told her to move her bag. No one made sarcastic comments. And when she walked past, people didn't laugh anymore. They watched, still unsure, still hesitant, but watching differently now, like she had become something they hadn't categorized yet. Ava alone again. Later that night, Ava sat alone outside the barracks. Cold air, quiet field, distant floodlights. Her hands rested on her knees, still shaking slightly from exhaustion. But her breathing was controlled now. Stable. A small shift from before. She looked at the empty training field. The same place she collapsed. The same place she was called weak. And she whispered, "Not again." This time, it didn't sound like a promise. It sounded like a warning. Ending hook for part 3. Behind her, footsteps approached. Slow. Intentional. Ava didn't turn immediately, because something about the rhythm felt different. Not a recruit. Not casual. A presence that carried authority. A voice finally broke the silence. "You're being observed more closely now, Collins." Ava slowly turned her head. A senior instructor stood behind her. Expression unreadable. "You adapt under pressure," he said. A pause. "But adaptation isn't enough to survive here." He stepped slightly closer. "This place doesn't reward improvement." His eyes locked on hers. "It rewards dominance." Ava stood slowly. And for the first time, she didn't feel invisible anymore. She felt seen. And that was more dangerous than failure. The night air over Fort Bragg felt heavier than usual. Not because of weather, because something in the training unit had shifted. Ava Collins could feel it even before the next morning's formation. Eyes followed her now. Not with mockery, not with dismissal, but with uncertainty. And uncertainty in a military environment was dangerous, because it always turned into one of two things: respect or rejection. Ava didn't know which one was coming, but she knew one thing clearly. She was no longer invisible. The new assignment. Squad 7, the instructor called out the next morning. Ava stepped forward. This time there was no laughter. No side comments. Just silence. Heavy silence. "You will be placed in live combat simulation exercise," the instructor continued. A murmur spread through the recruits. Live simulation meant one thing: unpredictable pressure. Real-time decision-making. No resets. Failure results in immediate removal from field leadership evaluation track, the instructor added. Then his eyes shifted and locked onto Ava. "Collins," he said, "you will operate as secondary tactical lead." A pause. That wasn't a reward. It was a test. A trap disguised as responsibility. Because if she failed now, It wouldn't just be failure anymore. It would be confirmation. The squad reaction. Later, as the squad gathered their gear, the tension broke into quiet discussion. She's second lead. After what happened before, did the instructors make a mistake? Ava heard every word, but didn't react, because reacting would mean she cared about approval. And approval wasn't survival. Performance was. One recruit finally approached her. A tall male soldier, arms crossed. "You messed this up," he said quietly. "We all get pulled down with you." Ava looked at him. No anger. No hesitation. Just calm. "Then don't follow blindly," she replied. "A beat. And don't hesitate when it matters." She turned away before he could answer. That silence behind her felt different than before. Less dismissive. More uncertain. The simulation begins. The field was different this time. Wider terrain. More elevation shifts. Hidden zones. Multiple simulated enemy positions. This wasn't a drill. It was a controlled war scenario. Begin exercise. The squad moved out. At first, everything looked stable. But Ava knew better. Silence in training never meant safety. It meant setup. First contact. It happened fast. Too fast for most. A sudden burst of simulated gunfire from the ridge. Contact front. The squad immediately reacted, some too early, some too late. The formation cracked. Ava stepped forward instantly. "Don't scatter," she ordered. But this time, she wasn't ignored as quickly. Not entirely. Two soldiers adjusted position based on her call. That was enough. She pointed left. Enemy simulation is drawing attention forward. Secondary flank will open in 6 seconds. A pause. One recruit snapped. "You can't predict that." Ava didn't look at him. "Watch." The first correct call. 6 seconds later, a second simulation trigger activated exactly where she predicted. The squad froze for half a second. Then movement resumed. But now differently. Correctly. A shift happened. Not spoken. Not announced. But felt. They started following her timing. Not her authority. Her accuracy. And in combat scenarios, accuracy mattered more than rank. Pressure increases. As they advanced, conditions worsened. Smoke zones activated. Audio disruption fields engaged. Visibility dropped. Communication broke down. The squad started fragmenting again. Lost visual. Left side unclear. Fall back. Confusion spread. Ava climbed slightly higher ground without hesitation. She scanned quickly. Then spoke. "Hold position, do not retreat." Another recruit shouted. "We're exposed." Ava pointed forward. "If we retreat, we lose control of terrain. If we hold, we control timing." A pause. Then sharper. "Trust positioning, not panic." No one spoke for 2 seconds. Then movement stopped. They held. The critical moment. And then it came. The simulated enemy push from 3 directions. This was designed to break coordination completely. Even experienced trainees failed this segment. The squad tensed. Someone shouted, "We're getting overrun." Another, "This is impossible." Ava's breathing slowed. Not panicked. Focused. She stepped forward into full view. Left flank 2 steps back. Right flank tighten formation. Center group, wait for breach signal. A pause. Then, "Now." The squad moved. Not perfectly, but together. And that changed everything. Ava takes full control. For the first time, Ava didn't hesitate. She stopped being reactive. She became predictive. Shift right now, delay incoming contact. Rotate left cover, don't chase intercept. Hold fire, wait, now engage. Her voice cut through chaos like structure cutting through collapse. And slowly, the squad stabilized again. Not because they understood everything she was doing, but because every decision she made worked. And survival builds trust faster than words ever can. The instructor's silence. From the observation platform, the senior instructor stopped writing. He watched the simulation unfold differently than expected. Not failure, not collapse. Adaptation. Controlled adaptation. He narrowed his eyes. She's not just reacting, he muttered. She's controlling tempo. That was rare. Very rare. Because controlling tempo meant understanding battlefield psychology, not just mechanics. And that couldn't be taught easily. It had to be instinct. Final phase, the push. The simulation entered its final stage. All squads were expected to breach a central objective point. Most teams rushed, panicked, failed. Ava didn't rush. She stopped. Everyone behind her stopped too. "Why are we stopping?" someone asked. Ava pointed forward. "That's the trap zone." Silence. "You're guessing," another said. Ava shook her head slightly. "No, I'm reading it." Then she waited. 3 seconds. 5. Then. Now. She moved. Vast. Precise. The squad followed. And right where she predicted, the simulation triggered its final ambush. But they were already past it. The objective was secured in under seconds. End of exercise. Exercise complete. Silence fell again. But this time, it wasn't confusion. It was disbelief. The squad stood in formation, breathing heavily. Alive. Intact. Successful. And Ava stood slightly ahead of them. Still not smiling. Still not celebrating. Just steady. Because she knew something others didn't yet understand. This wasn't the peak. This was the beginning of recognition. And recognition meant pressure. Final hook for part 4. Later that evening, Ava was called to the command office. Alone. The door closed behind her. The senior instructor stood waiting. This time, no clipboard. No distance. Just direct eye contact. "You've changed the dynamic of your unit," he said. A pause. "That's either an asset." He stepped closer. "Or a problem." Ava didn't answer immediately. Because she finally understood something. In places like this, being strong didn't make you safe. It made you noticeable. And being noticeable meant you would be tested until something broke. The instructor leaned slightly forward. "Tell me, Collins." A long pause. "How far are you willing to go to prove you belong here?" Ava's answer didn't come as a statement. It came as silence. Because she already knew. She wasn't trying to belong anymore. She was preparing to rise. The command office felt colder than the outside air. Not because of temperature. Because of silence. Ava Collins stood at attention, boots perfectly aligned, eyes fixed forward. But this wasn't training anymore. This was judgment. Across from her stood the senior instructor, calm, unreadable, and far more dangerous than any drill field she had faced. He didn't speak immediately. He studied her. like a system being evaluated for failure points. Finally, he broke the silence. You've changed the unit. A pause. That can be an advantage. He stepped forward slightly. Or a disruption. Ava didn't move. Didn't blink. Because she understood something now. In the military, success didn't always create trust. Sometimes it created fear. The decision. The instructor placed a folder on the table. Inside were evaluation reports, simulation data, performance logs. Ava's name appeared more than any other recruit in the last cycle. Not because she was assigned leadership, but because she kept emerging in leadership. You weren't selected for dominance training, the instructor said. You forced your way into it. Ava replied quietly. I didn't force anything. A pause. I adapted. That word hung in the air. Adaptation. The instructor narrowed his eyes slightly. That's exactly what we're testing. He tapped the folder. You're being placed in the final evaluation exercise. Ava finally looked up slightly. Something in her expression changed. Not fear. Not excitement. Recognition. Final evaluations weren't normal drills. They were designed to expose everything. Leadership under collapse. Decision-making under isolation. Survival when systems fail. The instructor continued. You will not be given a stable squad. A pause. You will not be given support structure. Another pause. You will be dropped into a full-scale simulated combat environment with incomplete intel. He leaned slightly closer. And you will be watched for breakpoints. The drop zone. 2 days later. Early morning. Black transport vehicle. No music, no conversation. Just engine vibration and silence. Ava sat inside with 5 other selected recruits. Different squads mixed. No cohesion. No familiarity. That was intentional. Across from her, one recruit muttered, This is a setup exercise. Nobody passes this clean. Another replied, People don't pass it at all. Ava stayed silent, because she already knew. This wasn't about passing. It was about survival under uncertainty. The doors opened. Cold wind hit instantly. Move. They were pushed out. The collapse field. The terrain was unlike anything before. Broken structures. Fog zones. Irregular elevation. Simulated urban warfare environment. Communication systems partially disabled. The squad landed scattered. No formation. No leader. Immediate chaos. Where is everyone? I can't get signal. Fall back to regroup point. Panic started within seconds. Ava stood up slowly. Dust on her uniform. She didn't rush. She assessed. And that single difference separated her from everyone else. Because while others reacted, she calculated. First contact breakdown. A simulated explosion triggered on the far ridge. Then another. And another. The environment shifted into active engagement simulation. The system wasn't testing speed. It was testing decision-making under fragmentation. A recruit ran past Ava. We need to retreat. Ava stopped him with one sharp command. No. He turned. What do you mean, no? Ava pointed toward the broken structures. If we retreat, we lose visibility control. That's how you get eliminated in this zone. A pause. Another recruit shouted. So what do we do? Ava exhaled slowly. Then spoke. We rebuild structure. Silence. Then. Now. rebuilding leadership from chaos. Ava moved first, not toward safety, toward control. She climbed a broken structure for elevation. From there, she could see movement patterns in the fog. Not enemies directly, but simulation markers, behavioral clues. She raised her voice. 3 units moving left corridor, don't engage yet. A recruit shouted back. You can't see that clearly. Ava responded instantly. I don't need perfect visibility. I need pattern recognition. She pointed. Shift right side formation. We control that choke point. A pause. Then something unusual happened. People listened. Not because she outranked them. Because she was correct. The turning point of the final trial. Within minutes, Ava had rebuilt partial structure among scattered recruits. Not full squad cohesion, but functional coordination. That alone changed survival probability dramatically. But the system responded. Simulation intensity increased. More pressure, more threats, more uncertainty. The goal was simple. Break structure again. And this time, Ava was isolated. Her group split. She stood alone in a fog-covered corridor. Silent, still, listening. Then footsteps. Not random. Controlled. Approaching. The isolation test. A voice came through static. Candidate Collins, you are now unlinked from squad system. A pause. Proceed independently. That was it. No backup. No support. No confirmation. Only isolation. Ava exhaled slowly. This was the real test. Not leadership. Not coordination. But decision-making when no one follows you. When no one confirms you're right. When no system supports your judgment. She stepped forward into the fog. The enemy that wasn't an enemy. Movement ahead. Vast. A simulated contact marker appeared. But Ava didn't react immediately. She paused. Observed. Something felt off. Too linear. Too predictable. A trap. She stepped sideways instead of engaging. The simulation triggered behind her, exactly where she would have been if she had reacted normally. Ava whispered, so that's what you're testing. Not combat skill. Prediction resistance. Final convergence. The system entered final phase. All remaining candidates were funneled towards central zone. Ava regrouped with scattered survivors. Now fewer. More unstable. Exhausted. Someone asked, what now? Ava looked ahead. The system wants collapse. A pause. So we don't collapse. She turned slightly. We control timing. Then added. Not speed, not force, timing. That became the core principle. The final push. Central zone opened. Multiple simulation threats activated simultaneously. Chaos intended. Breakpoint designed. Most recruits hesitated. Ava didn't. She moved first. And others followed. Not because they fully understood, but because hesitation felt worse than trust. She called out movements rapidly. Left cover hold. Center breach timing wait. Now move. Step by step. The group stabilized. Not perfectly, but enough. Enough to survive. Enough to succeed. End of trial. Exercise complete. Silence. Then white light fade. Reality returned. The field cleared. Recruits stood breathing heavily. Ava at the front. Still steady. Still focused. No celebration. Because she understood something now. This wasn't victory. It was confirmation. Final scene, the recognition. Later that night. Command building. Same instructor. Different tone now. You didn't just survive the trial, he said. You restructured it. A pause. That's rare. He stepped closer. Dangerously rare. Ava replied calmly. Then what happens now? The instructor studied her for a long moment. Then said, now the battalion watches you differently. A pause. And so will your enemies. Ava didn't respond. Because she already knew the truth. She hadn't become the strongest by winning a trial. She became the strongest. The moment she stopped needing permission to lead. Final hook ending. As she left the building, the night air hit her face. Behind her, the doors closed. Ahead of her, the base lights stretched into the distance like an open battlefield. Ava looked forward and whispered, this is just the beginning. And somewhere in the distance, another training alert activated. Because now that she had risen, the system was no longer testing her survival. It was testing how far she could go before something finally tried to stop her.